to the Mission Dorothy podcast with your hostess, Tamika's Williams. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Mission Dorothy podcast. Today we are finishing up our six pillar of self-esteem series. Today we are going to cover pillar number 6, which is personal integrity. Are you ready? Let's dive on in. So, personal integrity. Let's take a look at the definition in the dictionary for integrity. It states the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral rightness. The second definition is the state of being whole and undivided, right? So, when we look at the definition from the 6 pillars of self esteem by Nathaniel Brendan, it states to have a principle of behavior to which we remain loyal in action, to have congruity between what we know, what we profess, and what we do, and to keep our promises and honor our commitments, to basically walk our talk. Mm, mm, mm. This is a good one. Because I will say that integrity comes with maturity. When you're not walking in integrity, you're walking in immaturity, right? Because integrity is about being a man of your word, a woman of your word, right? Having the ability to be assertive enough to know when to say yes and when to say no. Not allowing yourself to put yourself in situations that you know you cannot follow through with, don't have the time or the energy to do. Right? See, that's when integrity becomes compromised, is when you have a hard time saying no. For people who have a hard time saying no, oftentimes there are going to be a lot of moments when you can't follow through with everything you've agreed to do. Sometimes it's just not possible. Sometimes you just don't have the time. And sometimes you just don't have the energy. But yet people will keep trying to push themselves to do so, knowing they've put themselves in a pickle, right? So let's dive in to personal integrity. So let's think about it. Have you ever been, in a relationship and, you may have been in that relationship for a while. Things may be getting a little boring, a little mundane. And all of a sudden, somebody reappears from your past. Y'all know where I'm going, right? So somebody reappears from your past. You start looking at this person and how this ugly duckling has become a swan. You starting to look at, that they got it all. They looks like they got it all together. They are giving you something that maybe your mate has not been able to give, which is just like mere attention, compliments, right? And then you decide that you want to go out and just have lunch with this person. It's harmless. We just having lunch. Nothing else is going to go on. We just catching up. Two old friends just catching up from the past. But the thing is, you decide not to tell your boyfriend, your husband, your girlfriend, right? How much integrity lies within that? Not a whole lot, right? Because we already know you getting together with this person because you're looking for something that you're not getting at home. You're looking for some sort of validation, some sort of feel good, but you're not being honest with your mate. That's an integrity issue, right? Let me give you another one. Let's say that you have a group of friends, right? And, you know, you meet up with two of your friends out the group, but one of the girls couldn't show. And so all of a sudden, your other two friends are just kind of talking about some relationship issues they have going on. Everybody is trying to connect and, you know, show each other that they understand what the other one is going through. And then all of a sudden, the friend that is not there confided in you. And you decide to share her business with the other two. Now, the friend who is absent did not share it with the two of them because she just didn't feel like she wanted to for her own personal reasons. But she trusted you enough to share her most personal relationships issues with you. And in order to connect with the other two friends, you decide, since you didn't have anything going on, that you were going to tell the other friend's business. Breach of trust, no integrity there, right? Let me give you one more example. Some of you guys I know will be able to identify with this one on the job, right? Have you ever had somebody on the job take your idea? Take your idea, own it, handle it as if it's their own, and you never get credit for it, right? Or you have a supervisor who is threatened by your intelligence and you are doing a fantastic job, meeting all the measures, productivity is great. Everybody is like really digging you on the job. But then when the district manager come about, right? Those that are at the top of the chain come. Your supervisor minimizes your talent, your intelligence, and your integrity. Oh my gosh, I am cracking up here because this is so prevalent in the workplace, right? Whether it is your leadership or coworkers, that example there definitely shows up a lot. It's a lot of missing integrity in the workplace, right? But what I want you guys to understand is that integrity is surely tied to self-esteem, right? Oftentimes we, say that we are working to be our best self, living our best life, and trying our best to be the best version of ourselves. But I want to challenge you to really sit and think about, how do you show up in this world in the area of integrity? Right? Are you showing up by doing the right thing? Or do you only do the right thing when other people are looking and you can get accolades for it? Are you able to keep your word? Right? If a friend shares something with you in confidence, are you able to keep that private to your grave? Right? Because people will go out and do things and they'll keep that private until they're in the grave. But if it's somebody else's business, a lot of people are quick to share other folks' business. Right? We all a little guilty of that. We are. Let's own it. One day or another, right? Whether it was you in your younger years or just yesterday. Everybody has done this before, I would say. Whether it was intentional or not intentional, it has happened. But as we move forward in this life, as we move forward in learning to live authentically and to be our authentic self, and we have to walk with integrity. It's imperative. Because what happens is we are constantly, a lot of times people are looking for approval from other people, but in actuality, you really need to be looking for approval within yourself. Are you proud of your own integrity? Right? Where do you stand when it comes to integrity? Are you proud at how well of a job you're doing with, just really working to be as honest as you possibly can? Right? Keeping your word, walking your talk, keeping your promises, honoring your commitments. Right? See, self-esteem is a reflection of how we live, how we meet the challenges of our life, not what we have or how we look or how popular we might be. See, one of the most important sources of self-esteem is integrity. Right? The integrity that we bring to our daily activities. That congruency between our words and our actions, right? That moral compass that seems to, not waver, right? See, when we keep our promises and we honor our commitments, deal with others honestly, we work to be fair and straightforward. When we behave in ways we are able to, be respectful, we produce a result far more powerful than the approval of other people. We produce the approval of ourselves, right? See, when you approve of yourself, you feel like you can trust yourself. You feel like you can trust your thoughts and your beliefs, right? You feel like, you're a person that other people can trust, right? You're proud of your moral choices, right? You really like yourself. You admire your ability to, have personal integrity. That's self-esteem. It's important to understand that connection between integrity and self-esteem. But see, on the other side, in contrast to approving of ourselves and, living in integrity, if we deal with others dishonestly, right? If we're trying to manipulate and exploit other people, we end up behaving in ways we are unable to admire. You're left with a result more devastating than others' disapproval, because at this point, now you disapprove of yourself. And the pain of disapproval of yourself is very hurtful, right? It's you feeling like you can't trust your own voice. You can't trust your own thoughts. You can't trust your own decisions. Integrity is an essential part of self-esteem, living authentically, and walking this earth and showing up authentic, right? So I want to give you an example of how integrity can be compromised, right? I gave you some little brief ones at the beginning, but let me give you one just a little deeper than this, okay? So in Nathaniel Branden's book, he talks about this young lady, and her name is Janice. So Janice is an assistant to an account executive in a big brokerage house, right? Janice was one of those women who wanted everybody to like her. She was always making promises to do things for people, more promises than she could possibly keep. She did this on the job and also with her friends. When she failed to keep her promises, she made some people angry. And she thought their anger was the only reason she felt so miserable. It was an act of courage for her slowly to grasp. So Janice ended up in therapy with Mr. Brandon, right? That deeper source of her distress was anxious impulsiveness of her promise, right? Her promise making and the recklessness of her promise breaking, right? So here she is sitting in therapy due to her promise making that led to her promise breaking, right? So Mr. Brendan gave her a sentence stem. And, these are the sentence stems on the homework sheets that I give you to promote thought and action within your own walk, right? So please make sure that you are downloading your homework assignment so that you can take this information from this episode and really incorporate it into your life, all right? So he gave her the sentence stem, if I bring a higher level of integrity to my daily activities, right? If Janice bring a higher level of integrity to her daily activities, what will happen? Let's see what Janice said. So Janice said, I wouldn't make so many promises. I'd keep my word. I wouldn't lie to make people like me. I'd make fewer promises. Right? So after working on this for about a month or so, Janice said, the thing I'm getting to see so clearly is that if it's important to me to keep my promises and commitments, I really have to be careful about what I agree to do. I can't always be saying yes to everything and everyone. Man, that's so good, right? Because I know y'all know some yes sayers, right? I know those guys, people who don't know how to say no, right? And they end up getting themselves in situations, where they end up compromising their own integrity because they just can't keep up with all the promises made, all the agreements made, right? Afraid to say no because then they're going to gain a disapproval of other people. But once again, this is seeking outside of yourself, right? You look for that approval within, and then you respect your own moral compass by learning how to say no if you can't do it. And it's okay, because the higher your self-esteem is, the more assertive you are, the easier it is to say no, right? Because you are respecting your time and you're not willing to put yourself in situations that will cause you to compromise your integrity, right? So in the beginning, it was easy for Janice to maintain this policy consistently, right? So she was doing a pretty good job of, learning how to say no and, understanding that she has the right to do so without guilt and shame. But as therapy progressed and her need for others' approval diminished and her self approval grew, it became natural to say yes when she wanted to say yes and no when she wanted to say no. When you are able to, self approve, then, like I said, you will be more assertive. You will be a guardian of your integrity and not put yourself in situations where you would have to compromise your integrity for somebody else. So, most of the self betrayals in my life, Janice says, had to do with my fear of someone disapproving of me. Now it's my own approval I'm concerned with, not other people's. Did you see that? As Janice became aware that she was a yes ma'am woman, right? And found it hard to say no due to shame and guilt or seeking and searching for other people's approval, she was sacrificing herself. With, Dr. Brendan's help and, bringing the awareness to her, constant ability to compromise her integrity, Janice decided that she no longer wanted to continue to put herself in those type of situations. Therefore, she worked on, self-approval and learning how to say no. That way she didn't have to compromise her integrity by not being able to keep up with everything and all her promises, right? So Janice wanted to walk her talk instead of talking and not having action behind it, right? So when we think about it, integrity is something that shows up in our life absolutely every day. I'll never forget. One, I'm trying. So I was in CVS. That's where I was. I was trying to figure out where I was. So I was in CVS. This was some years ago. I was in CVS and I was like in my 20s because I remember being in CVS. I don't know what I went for, but I remember having my little apron on because I was a hairstylist back then, and I was walking down the aisle and I found a Bank of America envelope. And when you see stuff like that, it's like, okay, where the cameras at? Somebody trying to punk me. Like, are y'all watching to see if I'm like, what is this? Right. So I was like, is this, I was looking at it and I looked up, looked around, and I was like, okay, is something in there? So I picked it up, and when I picked it up, immediately I saw it was stacked full of money, right? So as soon as I saw that it was stacked full of money, I took it I was going straight to the front counter with it, right? And the reason why I decided to go to the front counter instead of putting it in my apron pocket and walking out the store is because all I could think about was the person who lost it, right? They needed that money for something. I don't know if they was getting ready to pay somebody back. They had to go pay a bill or go pay their children's tuition. I had no idea because I know it was a lot of money in there, right? The pack was the envelope was rather thick. But I turned it in because I thought about what if that was me? And the crazy part was that when I was going up to the counter and as I was turning it in, a lady ran back in the store, kind of like irate and was like, did anybody turn in an envelope, full with money in it? And she was like, I had to drop it in here because I had it on me when I walked in, right? So here I am giving the front counter, the cashier, the envelope and telling her, I was, before the lady came in, I was like, hey, I found this on the back. Looked like somebody dropped it. And as I was saying that, the lady walks in. So we're looking at her and, you know, it was apparent that it was hers, but some you just want to make sure. So by this time I had already put it in the lady's hand, the cashier's her hand, and the cashier asked her what bank is on the envelope. And then the lady was like, Bank of America. And the cashier lady was like, yes, we have it right here. She was like, actually, this young lady found it on one of the aisles back there and turned it in. And the lady turned to me and she started crying. And she was like, ma'am, like, thank you so much. She was just so thankful that it was turned in and nobody like walked out with it. Right? Now, we are all faced with moments when our integrity is being challenged. And I try my best, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I really consciously try my best to, I want to do things the way that I would like for other people to do them as well, right? So if that was me, I would have wanted someone to turn that in so I could get my money back versus taking it and walking out the store, right? But to me, integrity is really important. And as you mature, as you get older, it becomes more, way more important, right? And if we were to look around and look at society now, oh my gosh, like people don't want to work. Everybody want everything easy. Everybody want to steal and people. I mean, integrity. I think we suffering as a nation when it comes to integrity. I really do. I think it's something that we all need to work towards strengthening within ourselves because our nation would definitely be a better place, right? But I want you to think about when was your integrity tested? Did you pass? Did you fail? Right? Were you at the ATM and then you took out some money and the ATM gave you $40 extra? Did you keep it? Or did you go turn it in into the bank? Right? Do you join in when other people are talking about other people? Do you join in and talk about that person too? Or do you say something? Right? Do you say something? Or do you just sit silent? Like, really think about that. Because, no, well, I can't say nobody because we got manipulators and stuff out here. But, I don't want to believe that people want to lie on purpose. But we know people do. Correct? But I want you just to think about yourself and think about, where do you stand when it comes to integrity? Is your integrity in check? Do you need to do a little work on it? Is it absolutely horrible? Do you even care about your integrity? Now, I think that if you're listening to this podcast episode, I feel that you do, right? But I just want you to kind of check in with yourself because integrity is one of those areas that we constantly need to assess to make sure that we are, our words is lining up with our actions is lining up with our heart, right? So let's take a look at how you can preserve your integrity. I found a really great article on Mind Tools, and it gives you some steps that you can take in order for you to be able to develop and preserve your integrity. So the first step is you want to define your values, right? You can't live by values if you don't know what you truly believe in. So you have to start by defining your core values, right? Your core values. These are the values that no matter what the consequence, you're not going to compromise them, right? So that's step one, define your values. Step two is analyze every choice you make, right? Like really think about your choices. Like no matter what, you work to try your best to make the right choice, especially when nobody is watching, right? Because the way I see it, God is watching all the time. Okay. So, you'll usually know what's right and what's wrong. And although sometimes you might need some, just quiet time to kind of figure things out sometimes, if you're not sure, then here's two questions that you can ask yourself, right? You can ask yourself, if my choice was printed on the front page of the newspaper for everybody to see, would I feel okay about it? In that moment when I picked up that envelope off the floor, like I already knew I was going to turn it in. I wasn't going to keep it. I would not have felt right keeping it, right? So I would be happy for that to be on the front of the newspaper, right? It'll beat all this rob, stealing, killing, and murder that's on there, right? The second question you want to ask yourself if you're having a hard time, making the right choice. If I make this choice, will I feel okay with myself afterwards? Right? Will you feel okay after you make the choice? Or will you feel conviction? And I think we all know what conviction feel like, and it does not feel good, right? So you got to remember, honesty and integrity aren't values that you should live by when it's convenient. They're values that you should live by all the time. This includes the big choices and the little choices, the choices everybody see, as well as the choices nobody see, right? The next step in order to preserve and develop and preserve your integrity is to encourage integrity, right? Work on building and improving the characteristics of being humble and having a strong sense of self, right? Really working to have good self-esteem and self-confidence, right? Because if you improve these characteristics, it will help you to have the strength to do right, right? To walk in integrity, to honor your commitment, to trust your voice and your thoughts and your beliefs, right? To be able to really walk in real integrity, right? Because these characteristics are important. Because there are always moments when you're under like intense pressure from others to make the wrong decision. And sometimes that pressure can come from yourself. So you have to really be careful when it comes to making sure that you give yourself time to process information properly. Don't let other people pressure you into making a choice. If you have issues with that, all you have to say is, you know what? Give me a minute and I'll get back to you on that. Boom. Just that simple. That way, you haven't made a promise. You haven't put yourself in any kind of situation can't get yourself out of. It gives you the opportunity to really sit down and really think hard about what you want to do, right? And it helps you to see that you do have the ability to be assertive, right? So remember those 3 tips. That is, and how do you develop and preserve your integrity? First, you define your values, your core values. You analyze your everyday choice or every choice you make, right? And you encourage integrity, right? By working to build that self-confidence, that sense of self, that self-esteem, so that you can have the courage to walk in integrity, the strength to walk in integrity, even when you're being pressured to do wrong, right? Assertive is definitely a friend of integrity, right? Because earlier when I said about, um, or I don't know if I said it, but when you are, yes, I did. When I talked about, if people are talking about somebody else, like, do you join in? Do you step up and, defend that person? Like, that's assertiveness, right? Assertive that's you defending an ethical position from an adult point of view, a mature point of view, right? Assertiveness is part of integrity because you got to hold yourself responsible. Going back to self-responsibility and as which is one of our pillars, correct? You have to hold yourself responsible in order to even walk in integrity. Next, I also want you to remember, try to avoid those little white lies. It may feel harmless, but tiny lies are still lies too. So try your best to tell the truth, right? Try your best. That's all you can do. I want you to also learn to take responsibility for your actions. If you make a mistake, own it, and then do whatever you can to do right by it, right? To fix it. These are other forms of integrity, right? Really working to keep your word and don't make promises that you know you can't keep. That's not walking your talk. Also, keep in mind that in times of fear, chaos, the temptation is very great. And in those moments, that's when a lot of people end up making the wrong choice, right? Slow things down a little bit. Work at calming things down a little bit before you make a choice, an agreement, a promise. Okay? And lastly, avoid seeming self-satisfied when you're acting with integrity, right? Don't be boast about it and just, egotistic about it, right? Because when you're doing that, it's like you want accolades and you're doing it to get attention. You're not doing it because it's coming from the heart and you know that this is the right thing to do. You're just doing it because other people are looking on. True integrity shows up when you by yourself, right? When nobody else can see the good choices that you make, right? It's about staying humble, not looking for approval, looking for approval from other people, but approval for yourself, right? Once again, staying true to yourself. That's what this is about, right? Working to be your best self, the best version of yourself, and that is your authentic self. So I am going to close out here, but I hope that this podcast give you something to think about, because we all want to believe that we are walking in integrity, but as you can see in those last 6 extra tips from the Mind Tools article, is that integrity shows up all the time in some of the smallest ways, like the little white lies, right? And we have to really work, going back to pillar number 1, we have to work at really living consciously so that we can be conscious of those moments when we can easily compromise our integrity, right? So being that this is the last pillar of the 6 pillars of self-esteem, I want you guys to understand and take away from these episodes is, if you have not done so already, please take a close look at your life. And I want you to ask yourself, am I happy with the quality of my life? Now, I don't mean quality as in material things, but I mean quality as in who you are as a person, right? When it comes to, your morals and values and, living on purpose and living consciously. I want you to really think about that, because I feel that, if you're listening to this podcast, I know that there is some work that has to be done, and that's okay, because we all are continuous, ever learning individuals, right? Ever changing. And so therefore the work will always continue, right? Because as we grow, we change, and therefore our ways and thoughts and decision making and way we go about life changes too, right? But I want you to really understand that these 6 pillars piggyback off of each other, right? So if I were to go down the list, I would say, in order to live consciously, you have to be self-accepting of yourself, right? Because to live conscious means to respect the facts of reality without invasion or denial, right? So if you're not self-accepting, you got to respect the facts too, that you're not accepting of yourself. You also have to understand that in order to be self-assertive, you have to be self-responsible, right? In order to live purposefully, you have to be self-assertive. In order to have personal integrity and to walk your talk and honor your commitment and promises and to, be loyal to your actions, you need all of them, all 5 of the other ones, right? You got to be able to, be to be conscious, to be self-accepting and responsible and self-assertive and, live on purpose, right? I really feel that if you incorporate these 6 pillars into your everyday life consciously, it will definitely enhance the quality of your life. What I do hope is that you really take time out to download the worksheets, the sentence stem home worksheets that comes with, these episodes which with each pillar, and really do the homework. Because you can listen all day, but it's so easy to forget, right? So that's why I gave you the homework, because the homework helps to kind of penetrate this information into your brain, right? The more you do it, the more you talk about it, the better it sticks. The sentence stems help you to be real with yourself. It helps you to start, thinking about these areas and where you need growth and what needs to change and what you need to add. Okay? So I really hope that you guys have really enjoyed this series, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. I know I've enjoyed sharing it with you all. I incorporate every last one of these into my life. When I came across this, it was a game changer for me as well. Like, really. Because, I just think about how many years we spend not living consciously. When we think of words like consciously and, intentional, these aren't words that people always talked about. But I charge you to really implement these 6 pillars into your life consciously. Come back as many times as you need to and listen to the episodes so that this information can really be instilled in your mindset and you can manifest it in your daily life. Right? You can really walk the talk, right? You can feel good about yourself because you are self-accepting, right? You can feel good about the choices you make because you are self-responsible. You can feel good about saying no because you are self-assertive, right? You can feel good about the, career decisions that you're making because you're living on purpose. You can feel good about, doing a favor to someone or, maybe giving to a charity or something, and you can feel good about that and nobody have to know about it, right? As long as you feel good about doing it. It's not about the accolades. So I really, really, really hope that you guys are really incorporating these 6 pillars into your life. I would love to hear how things are going throughout your journey. Please feel free to, hit me in a DM on Instagram. You can leave comments in the comment section. And I would really love to hear how things are going in your journey of implementing the 6 pillars of self-esteem as you work to build your own self-esteem and live as your authentic self. All right. So until our next episode, I will talk with you later. So don't forget, go on out there and walk in personal integrity. I hope you've enjoyed this series. Have a great one. Thank you for your time and your effort, and I'll talk to you later.